Marketing analyst this week is Mike Briggs. We talked with Mike on Thursday afternoon, a day before the USDA's cattle on feed report was released, and a week before it releases its planting acreage report. Are you concerned that we've hit a seasonal high at this point?
I think we have. I think your typical seasonal, you go into Father's Day and then it kind of starts to swoon a little bit into the 4th of July, and then after the 4th of July, you hit those dog days of summer and it gets pretty tough pretty fast. Hopefully not for as long a period of time as it usually does, because it usually wanes out to the 4th of July all the way into Labor Day before you really get your beef demand cranked up. You know, and a lot of weather has a big influence on that, but so does the economy. I think hopefully this year so does the lack of supply of fat cattle, and maybe we don't have to take quite as big a downturn for quite as long a period of time as we usually do.
We've talked about packers a lot in the past few months, but they're seeming to turn it around right now. Is he smiling?
They're grabbing with both hands right now. They flipped this thing a 180. They've got huge margins. Everybody was expecting at least a $10 break in the beef market. You have not had that in the beef market, and yet you've had futures and the cash price of live cattle go down, and that's all come to the packer, and he's getting her all now. So he's getting his, which he had several months where he wasn't, but he's sure taking it in chunks now.
But the other side of that is, if you're raising it, you're still not doing well. So
it's very frustrating because we have not seen margins flip in the feed yard, and we're going to see a cattle on feed report tomorrow that's probably going to show bigger placements than last year, which is hard for me to understand. If you placed cattle, you placed a huge loser. You're betting on the come of the market, you're betting on cheap corn, and if it doesn't rain in the Eastern Corn Belt, that may be gone too.
Do you think the market will react to that? Because the consensus is there's a lot of things playing into what that cattle on feed report is going to show if it increases.
Well, the board was down hard today. I think a lot of that's being priced in. So now, so long as the placement isn't way beyond the guesses, I think they're going to have a lot of that priced in. And maybe the board's getting fairly close to solid ground. It especially is if beef isn't going to break, because everybody was expecting this huge break in beef, and it really hasn't. You've seen the choice select spread widen out to $17, and that's really interesting to me, to go from almost nothing to wham, clear out here past, you know, historicals. That's really interesting to me. And typically that means there's a really good demand for choice, so that's positive.
Next week what we could see is a major shift in acreage, maybe an increase in both, but as you said before we went on the air here, there's a possibility with this weather that there's not going to be a good crop no matter how many acres there are.
It's really going to have to start raining in the Eastern Corn Belt, because that's where most of your corn is grown. That's where some of the toughest weather is right now, and that's going to be a problem. Yeah, there's going to be big acres, and the potential is always there. We always talk about potential, but it's going to have to be realized here. You're not going to have cheap corn, and with these expensive feeders, you're not going to make up fill in that hole you dug when you bought them.
How dangerous is that line? How risky could it get?
I think it's very risky. I think you're talking you've got a $2 range there for sure. You've got $4 corn and you've got $6 corn staring you in the face. A $2 range on cattle, that's $100 a head right there.
Talk about performance though, Mike. I mean, we have hot temperatures here. It's hotter out west, but how are you doing here?
Here, I think, you know, we've had a couple of hot days, but fortunately we had wind. We didn't have to run sprinklers. We didn't have to do anything. The cattle made it through it fine. So performance is going to stay exceptional. It's been exceptional all year. That's going to stay exceptional. That's maybe one of the things that's tripping up the cash cattle market right now, because performance has been so good. Carcass weights are big, and they're big for a couple reasons. One's excellent performance, and two, they throw this term around genetic potential. Everybody's feeding their cattle to genetic potential, because to replace them, you're just going to dig yourself a hole, so I'll just keep what I have and feed it till it's fully grown. That's unfortunate, put maybe more beef on the market than people anticipated, but the beef market's holding in there, so we'll see.
Very quickly, bearish going forward?
I think we're going to have a couple of tough weeks here. I think if we have better than expected demand on the 4th of July, going into the 4th of July, I think cattle supplies are short enough out front. Once again, we don't have to get as low as we typically do for as long, is what I think. Bullish is, I don't know if I want to say bullish. I just don't think it's Armageddon.